Drew just started that recording. So I think the biggest thing on our end is with Alturos Athletics Group is really the goal to just be able to provide information to athletes and families, especially with that have questions. Um, Hopefully by the end of the night, you have some guidance, some extra information. And we're super excited to have Coach on tonight, Coach Toomy from Tufts. We'll get into his bio and his background a little bit. Impressive resume, and I've always been lucky enough to be around Coach Toomey and see his work ethic. So you'll get a part of that today, and hopefully you'll learn something about high academic schools, any opportunities that you're looking for that you might not have heard. This is a good opportunity. We'll have a question and answer session at the end. So moving on to this first slide and we'll jump right in. Um, if you have any questions as we get into this, our website is Alturos Athletics. Definitely take a look, see what we're doing. Stay in touch with us on Instagram, social media, all that good stuff. Really trying to help athletes kind of have a voice and be seen.
So again, we are excited, as Kevin mentioned, to welcome Coach Toomey tonight. He is currently the associate head coach of the Tufts University Men's Lacrosse program. So welcome, Coach. Coach was recently named the 2025 IMLCA Division III Assistant Coach of the Year, where he's been the driving force behind Tufts' success over the last, I guess this will be your fifth season coming up, now serving as the defensive coordinator as well. Before Tufts, Coach Toomey built a really impressive Division I resume with coaching stops at many institutions, including Harvard, BU, Colgate, and North Carolina, contributing to not only conference championships, but also NCAA tournament appearances. His coaching journey reflects a commitment to excellence, player development, and high-level competition. So without further ado, please join us in welcoming Coach Toomey to tonight's webinar session.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, you missed the Western Golden Bears on there, so I can't forget about Division III Western New England.
I was my lead-in coach. I think the exciting part for me in this whole thing is I had the opportunity to work with coach and coach him when he was an athlete in college at Western New England. So got to see behind the curtain and how he approaches his preparation as an individual and how he's a leader on the field. So definitely Western New England is a huge part of this. And I think the stops that coach has been at, he's really been able to make a profound impact. So first question that we'd like to throw out, you've coached at those top programs. How have those experiences shaped your philosophy on that in that arena and especially on defense?
Yeah, I've been lucky to work for some amazing coaches, played for some amazing coaches. That's made it really easy to figure out what works for me. Yeah, I've had four of those head coaches have been defensive coaches, which is nice as a defensive guy. And all of them saw the game very differently. Bresci was such an amazing player, one of the best players of all time defensively. Poli had so many different schemes. Cleo is so tough. And then Coach Murphy, with just his West Point background, just attention to detail, I was able to learn just so many different things defensively from those guys that allowed me to figure out like what made sense for me as a coach. And then, at each level, the talent was just so different. UNC was always a favorite against teams. Colgate and BU were kind of the underdogs figuring it out. Harvard, we were super talented, but trying to figure out identity. And then, Tufts, we've worked really hard to have really talented players where most games we're going in, we're just as talented as most teams we're going against. And so it's been really different having to figure out, hey, am I trying to accentuate my strengths? Am I trying to hide my weaknesses? We can't cover these 3 or 4 guys. So what do we do? Hey, we can win most of our matchups. What do we do here? I think for any high school coaches or high school players on here, a lot of you guys have this with you're playing different level teams, and some teams you're way better than, some teams you're way worse. You have your defensive identity, you have your strategy, but you have to adjust a little bit based off who you're going against and what you have to do.
I think one thing on my end that I'd love to ask is the tough style of defense, right? And you guys love to play fast. And how has that changed a lot of your philosophy? Or I mean, obviously that's the way you like to play when you were an athlete, so that makes it a little bit easier. But how has that speed of the game changed how you work on player development with individual athletes?
Yeah, I think the speed of the game has helped, but also just how talented our offense is. Coach Neff does such a good job with our offense, so many great offensive players that the threshold for mistakes is so high. My first game as a defense coordinator was at Colgate. We won 7-4. You make a
Hmm.
couple mistakes here and there, it's difficult to come back. At Tufts, I've been down 9-1 and one. I went down 11-2 in the third quarter and one. So just the threshold for mistakes is so high that gives us the ability to take more chances, try more things, kind of expand our palette of opportunities to figure things out. Um, and then with that, just the risk reward is so great for us. If we get a turnover near the midline, top of the box, a bad shot high to high, those turn into goals for us, not just clears. And so that creates a giant opportunity for our defensive players to not only get assists, get goals, but see their cause turnover turn into goals right away. And so we fly around, we make plays, ready to go. And then the other piece here at Tufts is just the much less practice time than the Division One level. I think which is great for player development. Our guys are leaders; they run their own fall. It's their program. It's kind of the way I'd love to be coached. And so when I first got here, we had 7 practices before our first game, and it was a league game. So it was like, okay, like in 7 practices, can I fix every slide recovery? I cannot.
Yeah.
If you talk to my BU and Colgate players and ask what I did during practice, then talk to the Tufts kids, it's a wholly different world. Because less times, okay, what can we be great at? Well, we can great on the first 5 seconds, great on the intangibles, pressure on hands, physicality, just effort getting out. And Coach Warnock saw me play as a freshman and sophomore, and a couple other times after that where I didn't really understand what I was doing, but I knew I could play as hard as I could and hope for the best. And so that kind of how we started doing stuff at Tufts when I first got here. And year to year, it changes a little bit. Last year that graduated was 2 4-year starters and a 3-year starter starting for us with a 4-year starting goalie. 3 D mids graduated that are 4-year starters, and then 2 LSMs that were 3-year guys. So it's we got a lot more intricate what we were doing, but the main identity is just trying to apply as much pressure as we can, as early as we can, kind of full press basketball, zero blitz football style.
Pretty fun way to play.
That's awesome.
I would jump into that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was someone in college who was a 4-year guy at Winnick as LSM, and I was never on man down. I could not understand X's and O's, but I could see what I could do individually.
Make plays.
That's awesome. Kind of, Coach, next question here, kind of more for the players than the parents tonight, but when really evaluating student athletes at tournaments, maybe even at showcases or prospect days, what are some of these specific behaviors or traits that, really ring a bell with you, but really make you want to say, hey, I want this kid. I want this young man in my program.
Yeah, there's 3 main things we're trying to figure out. One, we want kids that want to be at Tufts. Luckily, it's a great school, but we want it to be something where they're really excited about, not settling on. 2, it's is there something that this player does that they're the best at that we're going to get, that I can do something with him? Offensively, he shoots 110. He's an unbelievable finisher. He's the fastest guy in the field. Defensively, he's the loudest guy quarterback and stuff. He's just a human cause turnover machine in the middle of the field, or he's physical, flies body around. Like, what can I build with this kid to make this work as a team? And what does he do better than everybody else? And then I can kind of figure out the rest of the pieces from there. And then the most important, which is I think the most difficult, is this someone I want to spend 4 years with? We spend a lot of time together, give them a lot of freedom, that they control my destiny, as a dad, as a family member. So it's just, do I want to spend 4 years with this kid? And the easy way to figure that out is either, one, have great relationships with coaches, or guys that you've either coached with or coached against, or they've sent guys to your program or sent guys to other programs. Getting recommendations from them that you can trust. 2 is those guys come into prospect days or playing for programs of our alums where, hey, they know what Tufts is about. They know how we want to do it. They know what it takes to show up in September and basically be on your own as student athletes from September until February and be ready to go in March. And then, me working with kids at events. I give them feedback. They're looking at me. Are they willing to try new things? When we do skeleton drills, are they going as hard as possible? Do their teammates like them when they score? Do they get high fives, or people just kind of ignore them? They want one of the first guys to look for balls or ball hunts at events. Those are things that stand out pretty easily. Two great examples. One, I was at an event on Thursday. There were some, seniors, juniors, sophomores there. We were doing skeleton one-on-ones. Just the D guys had, tennis ball in their hand. The defensive guy had stick. And it was like, okay, within 10 seconds, one kid stood out right away of like, one, he was athletic, but two, he went as hard as he could every rep. And I found out 20 minutes later, he was the only Division I commit there. He just wanted to get better, didn't have to go, wanted a chance to get better. And like he stood out in 10 minutes as being someone different than the rest of the guys of the event, just by going as hard as he can and having a baseline athleticism. And this other kid that I saw 2 years ago at an event, and the 3-day event, every day he was picking up all the balls on the field. We didn't end up recruiting him, but I spent a lot of extra time recruiting him, and I sent like 3 emails on behalf of him to other schools, just like, hey, check this kid out. I think he's the kind of kid you want in this program. And so like those small details, like that's huge for us as coaches to try to find a standout, because there's a million guys that are like about the same level of talent, but you can kind of find one or two ways to stand out that can help you.
So you're watching kids not only during gameplay, but between games at a tournament, when they're walking with their parents to the food truck. You've got your eyes on kids. When you're there, you're watching all the time.
100%. I mean, obviously I'm looking for that first. Usually I'm trying to figure the talent. And once I find the talent, we're seeing if that guy's the right fit for us. Sometimes you hear one thing from a coach, but every kid has different relationships with different coaches. So maybe it didn't work out with one coach, but work out with somebody else. And so, when you're trying to give down like, hey, is this the right kid for us? Is this one of the 12 kids we're bringing in? The one goalie, the one face-off guy, the 6 offensive players, the 3D guys, like I want to feel pretty good about that. I think most of us go like 70% recruiting, so we don't kill it every time, but it's like, if this kid doesn't work out talent-wise, am I happy he's on my team?
Absolutely.
There was a lot of nuggets in there that we get this question asked a lot, so I just wanted to give kind of a synopsis of that a little bit. Body language is one of the things you brought up. Actions equal impact. And I love the go as hard as you can and love the game. I think that's a big piece of it. Like show that you actually enjoy being out there and that it's not a drag that you're 3 days into a 3-day showcase or a prospect day. And if you're doing too many events, then dial it back. If you can't go 100% at every event, you guys know, mom and dad and your son know what is kind of the extent for you. So be understanding of that, but also make sure that you can put 100% out there.
Yeah, and one more story on that. I remember we were touring this kid at Harvard, and he's like, "Oh, I used to play football. I stopped playing." I mean, the offensive coordinator, like, "Oh, do you miss it?" It's like, "No, I didn't really contact." And so we said no to him. I don't really want an offensive guy that doesn't like contact. He went to a very good school and never really played for that program. And it was just kind of like, hey, like, when you're talking to coaches, as much as we're trying to sell ourselves on you guys, like you're trying to sell yourself. And if you're talking to 2 guys that played high school football, and you're telling them you don't want contact, it's probably not a great way to represent yourself or sell yourself to those coaches.
Definitely. What you say matters. Next one. This is more on the parent side. We really try to pride ourselves on ingraining everybody into the process and including parents as well. So if you could give one piece of advice to the parents helping navigate this process, what would it be?
I think the number one thing is just have a clear mindset with your child of what you want for them. And for, I can tell people how to parent. I think a lot of times it's, hey, what's best for them is the right thing. But whatever it is that you think is important for your child, like make sure they know that as they're going through schools. And sometimes kids go through the process and they think financially this could be a good fit, and they find out after wasting a few months it's not, or they find out that their parents really want them to study a certain major and the school doesn't have that, or they think they're going to have a lot of support going to events, coming for visits, and then it doesn't work out that way. I think it's making sure that you and your child get on the same page of what your goals are for them, what you expect of them, what you're willing to support with them, and that gives your student athlete the opportunity to kind of advocate for themselves within that rules. If the student really isn't sure what's going on, financially, or understand what's going on with their opportunities, it makes kind of a messy process at times as kids go through that. And then you ask for one piece. I'm going to give you 2. Make sure it's about the student after you give them that roadmap, that feedback. I think some players feel like they have to go to a million events because their parents want them, they have to go to a certain school their kid parents want them. Like make sure once you give them that guidance of what you want, like let it be their process, let them own it as much as possible. Obviously, it's expensive, it's life-changing. They're young men at 16, 17, 18, but the more it's their process, the more they're on top of it, the more they're the one writing emails, maybe with your help. They're doing the visits, they're asking the questions. Maybe those questions are fed by you, but they're asking those questions. The more likely I think you are to have kids that are really happy where they're at, that don't transfer for the wrong reasons, and that feel really great when they make that commitment that this is a place they want to go, not just doing because it's the best available at that time.
That's awesome information.
Anything, Coach, kind of now being a young parent yourself, you could project here 15 years down the road, right? When your kid is being recruited, what would you, with your background, your experience, what might be a question you would ask a coaching staff if one of your kids is on a visit? I got
Actually had this
kind of a loaded
conversation
question.
With one of our sophomores. His younger brother is a 28 that's outstanding, probably gonna be top 50 kid in his class. And he was like, "Hey coach, like, if you were telling my brother where to go, like where would you tell him to go? How would you tell him to handle this stuff?" And so we had a nice half-hour conversation this morning about kind of this whole thing. I think for parents, it's one is asking what you shouldn't pick it for the coach, but the coach does matter. Is asking the coach what their plans are. They're going to tell you that they want to stay, but they might have some really good reasons why they want to stay. Hey, my family's here, school system's great, or we have extended family that's here, we're not looking to leave, or that kind of gives you an idea of what their goals are. You're usually committing as a junior or as a senior, and so that means you're not graduating for 5 or 6 years. That's a long time in coaching. You look back 7 or 8 years, for these coaches, like most of them have switched, especially the assistants. So trying to have a value of like what they're looking for is really important to ask. And then asking where your son stands, or your daughter stands with the program. Most coaches will be very honest with that. Most parents are afraid to hear no, or afraid to hear this. But if the 8th goalie on our list visits or 5th goalie on our list visits, like we'll tell them like, hey, like you're kind of not in our top 3 or 4 guys right now. We're very interested in you. We want to watch you. We're excited to see your development. You may improve past this, but right now you're not in that top 3 or 4 as we go. And most coaches are willing to share that with kids. And so I think being willing to ask that, being able to hear that, hey, you're not number 1, you're not number 2, allows you to either move on next step or follow-up question. Okay, what would he need to do? What would she need to do to become one of your top? Hey, it could be GPA, it could be SATs, it could be you need to improve this area of your game. But being able to ask that first question where they stand, and then maybe possibly follow up what would they need to do to improve on your rankings can guide you with your future events, future study sessions. Hey, maybe you should go to not 12 events this summer, but maybe go to 4 and then hire a tutor, or stay home and study. It just kind of help you guide that way.
Yeah,
Great advice.
I think that's so meaningful. I think a lot of times parents feel or families may feel that they're pushy in that sense. And that's not being pushy, right? That's just getting the information. If you're on a visit, that's not a bad question to ask. There's no, like we talked with Coach Jorgensen from St. Leo, there's no bad questions. You need to get answers, and that's kind of a good place to start. So when you feel like the time's right, that's definitely a valuable question to ask of like, hey, where does my son or daughter stand in this process? And how, depending on how that coach answers it, that's up to you as a family to decide kind of how you move forward. So, like Coach said, most coaches will answer that honestly. So,
Yeah, and one more thing on that. Sorry, I think
no,
also
you're good.
depending on what you want or what drives you as a student or your family, like that can help you a lot. Like some players really want to be told they're great. Some players want to be told like how they're going to be challenged when they're in college, and that question can give you a really good insight into what the coach, how they're going to treat you while you're there, what they value, what they're going to say to you. You're part of choosing Western England as a young man. As Coach Becky told me, there was one kid that was better than me in the recruiting. If he came, I might not play. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to prove Coach wrong. Another coach I was looking at told me, hey, you're the best defenseman recruiting. We're going to build a defense around you. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to go somewhere where I'm the best player. I want to go somewhere where there's better players around me. I'm going to be challenged. And I also felt like someone telling you, hey, you're not our best kid right now. Someone's going to be honest with me while I'm there. And so I think sometimes the answer can also help you figure out what that coach is like too.
Awesome. Love it.
Transparency.
This is one of our slides. If you're interested in kind of finding out more about us, definitely shameless plug. Definitely reach out. QR code here. You can schedule a free consult, and we can continue to develop that relationship with you as an individual or a family. Go ahead, Drew.
So, Coach, again, given the overall success that you've had kind of in your career, but also the success with Tufts in terms of developing really high-level student athletes, right? What are some of the key tactical and/or mental traits? You started to hit on this question or two before or earlier, but what are really some of these key tactical and mental traits that you all as a staff prioritize when evaluating?
Yeah, on top of the other stuff is just self-starters. Our students have a ton of freedom. And it's not when I was at BU and we get them till December 19th and we get them back again January 3rd. There's only 2 weeks by themselves where we're in 8 hour, we're practicing 4 days a week the entire year. Tufts used to have 0 days in the fall. Now we have 10 days. And so that's not a lot of days. And so we need players that when they're not around me, will compete, will push themselves, will try to develop, that will take responsibility for the freshmen and sophomores beneath them when they're juniors and seniors. And that when they're freshmen, sophomores, they'll push as hard as they can to find a way to play in spring, be ready to go. So that's not easy to figure out because you're watching lacrosse games. So some things we look through is, when they visit, them talking about like their journey of why they started playing lacrosse, if they're playing other sports. I know it's difficult to play multiple sports with the recruiting calendar, but if you're a backup player on your football team or you're a wrestler or you're like a checking center in hockey, but you're a goal scorer in lacrosse, those are ways to show us that you're willing to compete year round. I think our football recruits, the kids that play football, probably do some of the best here, just because especially in the non-traditional areas like Texas or Utah, Florida, those football schedules are just so brutal for them in high school, and so they get to Tufts. It seems easy for them. So I think the guys that are multiple sports do really well for us because of that. And then we're looking for when we do prospect days, when I run clinics, we try to host some like overtime scenarios or tough guy ground ball scenarios. We do drills that are 2-on-1, 3v2, 4v3 ground balls. Put them in difficult situations and seeing like who's willing to take those chances to go for that ball, to be a little tougher. So those are like the 2 biggest things we look for is that self-starter and then that toughness. And those are some ways we try to figure out if they have that. Again, we don't hit every recruit on that. The best player in our program was the last kid in his class recruiting wise. We didn't recruit him until August after watching him for a full year. So we got lucky there, but those are our main goals with recruiting.
Coach, one question about multi-sport athletes. And tell me Division 3 wise, do you guys have opportunities to get out and watch kids? Do you make it a priority to watch kids in other sports? Is it something that you have time to do if it fits into the schedule?
We don't anymore. I did a little bit Division 1 level when I was trying to seal the deal for kids in the fall.
Yeah.
I just think with the timing right now, it doesn't really make sense with the July and August recruiting that we were doing. We can't offer July 1st going into their senior year.
Yep.
The list is so broad in the fall. But we do often ask kids for if they have film from other sports. We love when kids have football highlights mixed in or hockey highlights mixed in their highlight tape. It shouldn't be 3 minutes of your 4-minute highlight tape, but a couple quick clips of you playing a different sport or you in the weight room. We like that. I think it just shows a different aspect to your game, shows that you're a little different than other guys that are playing. And it shows like you're not afraid to be a hardo, or try hard. Kids that put lifting things in there, it's like, oh, that's so lame. Like it's a look at me thing. But also showed, hey, like you value the weight room, you value playing multiple sports. Like this is important to you. We want that there. So less about going to see it and more about either asking for a video or hoping it's in those highlight tapes.
You mentioned coach self-starters. What are your or can you give any specifics or details regarding what are some of your guys doing now in the off season? All right, as this self-starter, obviously there's the team lifting sessions, team conditioning sessions, but any kind of tips or cues you can give the high school guys on tonight as to what a midfielder at Tufts or an attacker or defenseman at Tufts is doing right now on their own out of season?
Yeah, I think there's two things there. One, the biggest thing that our guys do is they do stuff together. That's a huge point of pride. Something I was like kind of surprised when I first got there. It's just how often guys do stuff together and how important it is when we talk to the juniors and seniors. Like you coming in at 6 a.m. and working out is great, but it's not helping the program. Like that's helping you. Like you need to bring a freshman sophomore with you. So I think that's the biggest thing is just finding ways to do stuff together so you can compete. Yeah, I'm really tough. I can sprint, but if I'm out there with somebody that's challenging me, I'm going to be this much better. And
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to get that much better. And so finding a friend, finding a teammate, could be another defenseman. If you're a D guy, could be an attackman to go against. Finding someone that's going to push you in some way. That'd be my biggest thing for kids is just to find someone that's going to challenge you while you're out there. And it may be, hey, you're the guy that's going 5 days a week extra. So on Monday it's Johnny, on Tuesday it's Kyle, on Wednesday it's Benny. Like it could be different people, but finding guys that are going to push you, I think that's the best thing. That gives you a little bit of accountability, buddy. So if you are having an off day and you don't want to do it, and your friend's like, "Hey, we're doing it together," like that's going to hold you to that. And then our guys are competing, so they're doing a ton of one-on-ones against each other. They're doing a ton of shots versus goalies. Our goal is to see live shots all the week. Our shooters don't shoot too often on air. They almost always get a goalie in the cage if they can. And then I think just making sure the work ethic you're doing is not hollow. And what I mean by that is, and if you read basketball stuff, probably the easiest way to read stuff about it, but you can go out and take 40 shots. You can go out and play wall ball for 20 minutes and not get any better. Just make sure whatever you're doing, you're intent with, you're intentional, you're purposeful. You're making sure that, 15 great minutes is way better than 30 minutes of just casual being out there.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
And it just develops you as a leader as well, right? So if you can be a leader on your high school team and get guys to show up and do one-on-ones, it's going to transition you as a leader at the college level. So love it. This is a pretty academic question. Tufts is a highly academically rigorous. How do you assess a recruit's ability to balance the demands of that with personal growth, with lacrosse growth, with everything they have going on? Tough question.
No, it is. But I think the biggest thing is just, that goes to that self-starter, that total person we're looking for where, some kids we get the Tufts where school is easy, where that's what they've done their entire life. Like that's what they've been, from a young age, they've taken, advanced classes, they're taking APs as freshmen, sophomores. They're used to this level. It's not difficult. It's just they have these habits. And some kids, it's, they had to fight, tooth and nail to get a B plus, to get A minuses. We're test optional currently, which has been great because some kids that maybe are not, good enough test wise to get a 1400, 1350. They can show that, hey, if you give me a chance to grind, I can get those A minuses. I can get those A's. I can make sure I have no C's, very few B minuses. It has like a track record of doing well. I think the kids that, and our admissions agrees with this. If you're getting mostly A's and a couple C's, the GPA may be the same. That's way different than like a bunch of B's and A's. Even though the number might be a 3.3 or a 3.5 or a 3.7, a couple C's here and there, kind of shows that they're not consistent. And everyone has a story. Maybe you failed one test or, someone gets sick or whatever. But outside of those, it's, just make sure you don't have C's, taking the most difficult classes you can. And then just, how you do some things, how you do everything. I don't love that always, but it's not a bad way to live. And so I think if you're someone who is a self-starter lacrosse wise and weightlifting wise and other sports, you're going to kind of carry that into academics too. And the last piece of that is if your teammates are important to you, you're going to do well academically when you're at Tufts. You're not going to be ineligible. You're not going to be the person that teachers are like, hey, I met this Tufts lacrosse player. They handed all our assignments late. I don't really want more Tufts lacrosse players in my class, or they cheated, or they didn't come to class. So it's like just having that high standard, make sure your teammates are proud of you, parents are proud of you, looking for kind of those things.
Awesome.
Coach, kind of an extension to that, do you all, we talked to a couple of Division I coaches, and they said they've done this. I'm not sure if you guys at the D3 are doing this, but do you have any communication or conversations with not just club coaches or club directors and high school coaches, but anybody that the student athlete might have communication or access to? So like a guidance counselor, or do you speak to any teachers to figure out, hey, is this kid coming to class, or do they work well in a group setting? Are they treating all with respect, et cetera? Or is that just at your level? Is that just too much work?
I don't think it's too much work. We really don't do that. I just think, I'm not a very trusting person. I got a very small circle of people that I trust. And I think 99 out of 100 teachers or guidance counselors would give kid glowing praise no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, so it doesn't mean it's not worth it. If someone's putting the work in, you're gonna find something. You're trying to make sure you do the best you can on these 10 to 14 kids you're bringing in. So definitely not worth the work. It's just you're figuring out for you like what you're gonna value. Are you looking for confirmation bias? Are you actually looking to find something out? Uh, and then from there, it's just do you know somebody at that school? If you know someone at that school or you have a connection, I think that might be worth it. For
Hmm.
me, I don't know that that's worth it for me at this point. But, if you tell me that Tills is doing that with every recruit at Maryland, then maybe I should start doing that and get on board with that. Those guys are doing that. Maybe I need to look in the mirror and work a little harder. But I think, I just don't trust too many people. So the more I can expand my circle of that, the more likely that is to happen. But you're just hoping that the grades, what you see on the field, trusting your instinct, getting them around your players, getting them
Hmm.
around your guys, treating them as people throughout the whole process, like that can illuminate enough that you feel great.
Awesome.
So in terms of the advice here for, again, for the student athletes on the call tonight, as well as their families, but regarding communication, campus visits, showcases, individual versus team tournaments, um, how do they go about maximizing these different recruiting opportunities? And I know everyone's unique, right? Every situation is different, but any advice you can give to these individuals this evening?
I think for most people, almost like a quarterly system can be great. And as things change, you can add stuff in, like you became captain, or you set a record at your school, or you got your SATs back. But I think if you kind of set like a quarterly system with, um, you know, going into your summer as a 28, maybe, hey, I'm going to these events. Here's what I'm looking to do. Uh, Kind of an email for June, maybe another one for July after the July 4th break. I'm looking at and then from there, um, another going into the fall of, hey, here's the fall events I'm going into. Here's what my plans are for this fall. I'm going to work out 3 days a week. I'm going to play a fall sport. I'm playing for this club team and get lessons by this person. Having a plan for your fall, what you're doing. Another one out of the fall, going into winter break. Hey, here's my fall grades. Here's what I did. Here are my winter plans. If there's any events you're going to in the winter, having that. And then after the winter, here's my highlight tape from that winter experience, the fall and winter. Here's where my plans are for the spring. Here's my team schedule. If you're able to go to a game, do that. And then another one going into that next summer. I think that's a pretty good spot for a lot of things. And then as individual things come up, like those captaincy, like your SAT scores, like your AP tests come back, you can sprinkle that in.
I think that's meaningful because that update is powerful, right? Hey, coach, these are good things that are happening. Here's my fall film, whatever it might be. That quarterly kind of checkpoint, because coaches are so busy and they're trying to field so many different things. If there was a drastic change and you played really well during the fall, it doesn't hurt to reach out and let the coaches know.
Yeah.
And here's my new film, here's my new scores, whatever it might be. I think that's a meaningful timeline that a lot of guys can kind of layer into what they're doing.
What about coach in terms of kind of similar related topic, the whole evaluation calendar for you all as a staff in terms of, do you want to see a kids at a prospect day? Do you want to see them at a high school game? We mentioned other sports, not necessarily going to watch them play anymore at other sports, but you want to see them play in a summer tournament. Like, how many times do you guys as a staff want to actually evaluate a player before, whether they're on campus or before there's conversations about them coming in and enrolling at Tufts?
Yeah, I think for our where we are right now with the schedule we have, we value like these winter tournaments a lot. Uh, the fall is great too, but we really value these winter tournaments. A lot of them are indoors or in good weather situations where you can definitely maximize your ability there. It's a little closer than the November ones, not too much more, but we get a lot of December and January events, honestly, for us. And then if you can come to a prospect day, as a family, you shouldn't go to 100 prospect days unless financially it makes sense for you. But if you're in the area already, if there's one around you, that's definitely the best way for an individual school to get coached by a staff, to see if you like that staff, for us to see if we mesh well with you. Most schools, including us, try to have their players work the events if they can. So if you go to a one during the school year, you're going to get 20 to 30 test players there working with you, evaluating you, cheering you on, coaching you up. That's a really great way for us to see if you're just one of us.
Hmm.
And then I used to love going to high school games. Knock on wood, we've been very successful in May. And so, when things weren't going as well for me at some other schools, and we were done end of April, first week in May, I had all of May to go to a ton of high school games. And I think that is a great opportunity to show what you can do. I think your coaches know you really well. They're usually longer games, so you're getting like a full hour and a half to watch a kid play. Usually the depth isn't as great at most schools outside of a few, so you're getting more opportunity to might go to one of your summer games and see you take 2 shots. But for your high school, if you're someone recruiting, probably seeing you take 6 or 7 shots or get a ton of dodges, defensively get a lot of stops. So I love high school games when we can. We've just been lucky to not be able to do that recently.
Keep being lucky. Keep being lucky, coach.
But I think that's a great thing. And then coming off of that, your high school role and your club role and your showcase role could be so different. On your club team, you're the D midi who takes every wing and scores. On your high school team, you're the best player, so you face off as well as play attack sometimes, and you're the man up shooter. And then at showcase, you get there, none of the guys are passing the ball, so you're just an absolute dog on ground balls and doing the best you can. I went to an event this fall, and it was not a great event, but there's no face-off guys, so we did ground balls after every goal. And I think this one kid must have got every ground ball he's on the field for, he got. And I'm going to make sure we watch this kid for the next few months because that just stood out to me. And so no one passed to him, and he didn't get a ton of opportunities this way, but that was one way where he stood out. So I think your variety of roles with your high school, your showcase, and your club stuff can be a great way for us to see how you might project in college. And then those prospect days, if they make sense financially and time-wise, I think are the best thing you could do once you have that small list of schools. We push prospect days on local kids if we think that's a great fit for them. We don't really push it too much on the out of area kids. I feel uncomfortable asking a kid to fly across the country, get in a hotel if I'm not really like incredibly high on a kid. Most coaches though will have no problem saying to a kid, hey, if this event goes well, we were likely to offer you. If it doesn't work out, I'll watch highlight tapes of you. I'll go back and watch some of your games. But the easiest thing for you would be just come to this event. Most coaches are pretty honest with that, not salesmen there.
Awesome.
Good advice. I like that.
I think this one is we hit on this a little bit, but is there anything else kind of left that any specific questions that a student can kind of self-assess to just determine whether a program is the right fit for them? I think that's thinking about the specific level of the program or kind of what their wants and needs are family-wise. I mean, we hit on that earlier, but is there anything that comes to mind from this type of question?
No, I think people need to recognize that, as much as you're trying to impress us as coaches, like you guys are the one making the choice. And so you need to make sure that we're a good fit for you. Obviously some levels, like you need the right scholarship, right? Nowadays NIL package, or academic piece for admissions, that right slot. There's not unlimited opportunities for kids, especially the face-off and goalie spot. But at the end of the day, it's as much as you're trying to sell us on who you are, like we're trying to sell you on who we are. And you shouldn't just take the best opportunity if it's not the right fit for you. So that's a little bit unique to each parent, each kid, but making sure as you go through this, you're getting out of this what you need. Whether you have a list of questions you ask every coach, whether it's making sure that you're letting it know that you're confident in who you are as a person. We're not lucky to have you on the visit. You don't want that attitude, but we want you to know that like you believe in yourself, that you're confident, that you believe things are going to work out for yourself. So I think if you go in with questions about what is important to this program, when you define culture for your players, like what does that look like? When you're looking to develop talent, like how do you do that as a coach? Hey, I'm a defenseman. Here's the type of game. Like how would you work with me to improve my game over the next few years? I think any question you can ask that shows a program that you understand how to be goal oriented, how to set goals for yourself, that you have something bigger in mind, kind of shows us that you've really thought about stuff. Um, and the other thing we just it should be the student asking as many questions as possible. Again, the parents need to be involved; they need to be a part of it. But I think the more it's just the player or the student asking the questions, I think the better off it is.
Awesome. I love that.
I think last question we have kind of prepared here for you, Coach, and we'll open it up to Q&A from the audience.
Yep.
Obviously, with the way technology is changing, right? It's a lot different than when the three of us were recruited out of high school, or when the three of us both were when we started recruiting as coaches. But given that the ease of access to college coaches in today's world, how can recruits go beyond just sending that message, right, on one of those platforms and actually make some sort of meaningful impact or build a meaningful relationship with a certain coach or a certain coaching staff?
Yeah, I mean, with that, I mean, we get about 40 to 60 emails a day from kids. So I think you having something in the subject line that stands out that when I am, about to leave the office, I'm quick scroll through, it's like, oh, something different. Like either, hey, you have a connection with the school, like your parents went there. Um, we have a unique major that you want to study, putting in there. Hey, you're a 1570, 1550 SAT. Um, some meaningful hook in that subject line is really important. And then I don't want a million of these, but you look at other sports like football is done basically all through Twitter. And
Hmm.
when I get a DM from a kid, I'm not a huge Twitter guy, but if I end up looking at it, like I look at every Twitter DM that I get. That's not I'm gonna hurt myself with getting a million of these after these, but there's just not a lot of them. Same with Instagram DMs. Like I think they're kind of annoying, but I don't get a lot of them. And so depending on what your coach is into, how they respond, that can be a way to stand out a little bit where I can't guarantee you're going to get seen, but every Instagram DM I've gotten that I've looked at, I've at least looked at it because I don't get a lot of them. Whereas if you talk to like a football coach, that's all the time. Or I don't know if hockey's still doing it, but years ago they were huge on Snapchat where they're always Snapchatting recruits. But I think if you're going about a little bit different way, if you can get the cell phone number and text the coach, that might annoy some coaches, so you're crossing a line, but it may be a way to get in for other coaches. So if you do text or email or text or DM, I wouldn't do 100 of those. Maybe just send one and see if it works. But that could be a way to just stand out something a little differently, find a way to cut through that cloth a little bit. But I think the subject line is really important. Understanding that, if I get 30 emails, I spend 3 minutes on each email, about an hour and a half to get through. Like there isn't a ton of time for that in the summer when I'm at hotels or during the season or during games. So just making sure you're finding a way to stand out as much as possible in that first sentence, in that subject line on my phone or in my account.
And this kind of that's awesome. And this goes without being said is like athletes should kind of live by that 24-hour rule. If a coach gets back to you, you should respond, think it out, kind of talk it out, but respond within 24 hours to a coach so that they know that this conversation can continue on. If you let it kind of fade away, you're going to try to get that person back on the hook, and that might be more difficult the second time around. So,
Yeah,
uh,
one thing on that, the event I was at this week, one of the college coaches said that was, hey, if you're gonna if you look at an event, there's 70 coaches there, and you email all 70, like you should be ready to respond to everyone that responds to you. And I never heard that. That made a ton of sense. This coach wasn't at a top 20 program, but for them to get an email from a kid and then reach out and then not hear back for months, like that's not a good taste in the mouth for that. Now, if
yeah.
it's the right kid, we're not going to take it personal. Like I don't respond to every email, so I can't expect you to respond to every email for sure. But if you do, it's going to help you. And then most players don't understand how close knit our coaching group is. The academic component of our school is difficult because it's so challenging to make it, but it does make it easy. I can just slice off a giant section of the population. But if you are a really great player and you can't get into Tufts, like I have a lot of friends at schools that don't have these same standards. And so whether it's getting merit money at another school or going to a Division 3 school, Division 1 school, like I send coaches kids all the time that aren't great fits for Tufts. And so if you treat me really well, if you write nice letters, if you write emails, if you do follow-up thank you notes after visits, it does stand out. And so if it doesn't work out at Tufts, I'm happy to forward stuff over to other coaches. So I think making sure that you don't burn any bridges is really important for kids.
Awesome. So we will switch to a question and answer phase here. Let Coach catch his breath a little bit. If you have questions, feel free to jump on if you're willing to to kind of say it out loud. Don't be shy, or you can put it in the chat and we can read it out, whatever you prefer. But feel free. Floor is open.
Again, I've been lucky to work at some, every level of Division 1 and Division 3, Patriot League, Ivy, the Cone, and then NESCAC. So I think, I can hopefully help you guys a little bit in different areas.
I have a quick question if you have a minute. I'm a
Yep.
father. Kind of going off the topic you said about the high academic at Tufts and at Division 3 schools in general. Are student athletes discouraged from certain majors like hard sciences, chemistry, physics, pre-med? Is that something that just doesn't meld with playing lacrosse at Tufts?
That's a great question. I think this isn't true of every Division 1 program, but for a lot of Division 3 programs, this is a sell for kids, is because you have a less rigorous fall, because you have more freedom in the fall. It's usually easier for kids at Division 3 level to be a bio major, to be an engineer, to schedule those 3 and 4 hour labs in the fall. It's not easy anywhere. Those are very difficult majors. But again, you can load up your fall and take either more credits or your 2 labs in the fall instead of 1 fall, 1 spring. But for a lot of student athletes, that engineering, that biology, those sciences are going to be easier at Division 3 level than Division 1. Again, they're still doable Division 1. We had plenty at the schools I've been at, but I think for a lot of kids, that is a deciding factor to look at some of the Division 3 programs that have those majors.
Do you have any at Tufts right now?
Yeah,
Pre-med or hard science majors on the team?
100%. Yeah, we have. Okay. We actually just talking as a staff today of whether we don't have majors on our roster, and we actually just collected the majors today because we're like, hey, maybe we should have that on our roster, so future recruits can see that, can decide if that's we have majors that they attract. So what's up? I should just look at this today. I want to say we have 7. I think we have 7 engineers right now on the roster. It's usually about 2 or 3 a class that come in looking for engineering, and then from there a couple of guys decide that they want something different, possibly. We have a ton of sciences, bio majors, usually not pre-med, but kind of that biology track that can turn into med school when they graduate. So we have at least 7 or 8 engineers and a couple more in sciences.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Up-to-date information. We have one in the chat here. We have a couple actually in the chat. One question was, what are good clips for close defenders to put on their films? What are things that you like to see from a close D guy? Yeah,
we need to see them play defense, which we love pulls to score goal. We scored over 30 goals last year. Our returning LSM's got, I think, 33 career goals. We love goal scorers, but we need to see you play some defense. And so that's making sure that you have some one-on-one situations. Ideal world, you have some clips from at right at X behind the cage. You have some wing dodges. You have some top center dodges. You have some wing play stuff or riding that turns into like a longer pursuit one-on-one. But make sure you have those clips the best of your ability, and then hopefully that kind of reinforces your playing style. Some of these big defensemen, you get some 6'4" defenseman that shows to a showcase, and it's like no one's like, hey, I'm not gonna dodge that kid, so he just doesn't get dodged. So putting yourself on an island, challenging yourself, telling your teammates to press out a little bit to get those one-on-one opportunities, that can help you. So make sure you have clips of you playing defense one-on-one, and then hopefully, ideally, some slide clips too, with you being physical. I know hitting is not really valued as much at some of these summer events. Start looking for guys to take their head off, but if you have some nice slides, knocking someone over, finishing the play the right way, that's a way to stand out as well. And then, if you are grading ground balls, mixing some first-time GBs, that stands out to us. Guys that pick up ground ball first time, getting 2 or 3 of those clips in there shows you have a great stick, that you're reliable. And then if you have transition opportunities, showing those too. But the biggest thing is going to be those one-on-ones, and we don't need to see 14 clips of you carrying up, running for 30 yards and passing the ball to nobody. Like those are just kind of like we fast forward through those.
I got another one for you here.
Yeah.
If I'm a strong player but not on a strong club team, what can I do to get your attention?
Yeah, I mean, the reference a player, Jack Ranieri, who's D3 Player of the Year last year. He played on the coach is a really good coach, but the club team is definitely not a well-known club team. He was the only kid we're looking at their team, but he played on probably the fourth or fifth best club team in his area, and he just loved lacrosse and played the best he can. He made sure that he played really well for his high school, and he had his high school coach reach out to us. The club coach reached out. He came to a prospect day. I run some showcases under an LLC. He came to one of those, but he just made sure he was in front of us multiple times and coached by us to stand out. So, I think for you, when you're looking at your schedule in the summer and there's no big games for sure, you play the best to get every game, but if you're going against one of those top 10, 20, 30 club teams at an event, like that's a good chance to stand out. And then recognizing that, if you have great individual plays, like that'll show up on your film. And so making sure that you are finding the best clips of your games, putting that into one highlight tape, sending that out. Like I don't really care who you play for if the film was really good. And so just trying to understand, hey, what do I think a coach is looking for? What have I heard a coach say he's looking for? I'm gonna make sure I'm showing those clips, putting that into one small video that's 2 or 3 minutes of high action, high packed. Like that doesn't really matter who you play for. We can see that in that.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, multi-sport question here for you, Coach. Is it possible to play two sports at a place like Tufts? And do you all have any current members of your roster who are multi-sport athletes?
Yeah, crazy enough, this is my 7th year at Tufts, and this is our first year. We don't have any guys playing both at this point. We have 2 football guys that are going to try out. There's a hockey kid that's going to try out that are freshmen. But every year I've been at Tufts, we've had at least 2 or 3 multiple sport kids, including this kid Mason Cohn, who played hockey, then went on to face off at Syracuse. Kid Mac Bradall, who was a top 50 recruit in the country, committed Division I, decommitted to come play come play golf and lacrosse at Tufts. We've had football guys, we've had hockey guys, we've had basketball guys. Our head coach, Coach Nalfo, he played 3 sports at Tufts. He was a football quarterback for the team, played basketball and played lacrosse. We love multi-sport guys. And then, if you're good enough, you can do it Division I level too. When I was at Carolina, we had this kid, Mark McNeil, who was on a tight end for the football team, and then played lacrosse as well. Was a great lacrosse player for us too. He has got a really good MLL and PL career coming out of that. But yeah, there's definitely opportunities. As important as the fall is for kids, if you're good enough and you work hard, like it's gonna carry through. There's a lot of negatives to it for sure, but I think that compete level, that working on your body, that being able to master a different sport is only going to pay dividends for you. So it definitely is possible at Division I level, but definitely way easier at the D3 level. And some of our rivals like Bowdoin, Wesleyan, Middlebury, I know for years those guys have had multi-sport kids as well.
Recruiting timeline question here for you. At what year of a high school career do you start evaluating players? You start creating those kind of recruiting boards?
Yeah, I mean, the first answer is whenever we see them. There was 129 at the event this week that stood out that he'll be the only 29 on our list for probably the next 11, 13, 14 months. But we noticed him, I liked him, and I put him on the board. But usually it's the, we can't offer kids in our league and SCAC until July 1st going to their senior year. And so once we get to the end of July, that's kind of when we start looking at that next class. We're still working on 27s. For this year, work on 26s, but we're starting to look at 27s at that point. Sometimes we go to events where it's the morning is 27s, the afternoon is 26s, or they're all intermingled, so we have to watch stuff. But by and large, it's that end of the summer going into your junior year, for the Division III level, and then those fall events, that winter events, and then that early summer is huge for us. Trying to figure out if you're the right fit for Tufts. I think for most Division III programs, it's going to be those late July events. Kind of kicking off that eval and those fall events.
Coach, I'll let you catch your breath here for a little bit. We got one more question in the chat, and then if we have any more. But I just want to thank you. This has been awesome. There's been so much good information that these guys can take, some quick hitters, just a lot to process. Hopefully, guys were taking notes through this or at least paying attention, because there was a lot of good stuff that Coach Toomy brought up, and definitely it doesn't hurt being from a back-to-back national championship coaching staff and kind of just seeing what Tufts does and how the compete level that they show up with every game. So hopefully you guys were able to get something out of this. But one question I have here that's waiting is, um, it's a transfer question, and I know NESCAC is a little bit light in transfers, but if there is there steps that are taken as a player that's looking to move from a school, and what would be that first step, and how can they start that process?
Yeah, the number one thing is going to be for Tufts and the rest of the schools is knowing when the transfer application deadline is. We can't really do much outside of that, and knowing what the transfer rules are for the school. So if you look at schools, you can go to their website, look at the application deadline for transfers, making sure you know that. The fall sports have a little easier for transfers because they kind of play their fall, see what happens. Then they go into winter break, decide, hey, I don't want to come back. They transfer to that spring or for the following fall. For a lot of the NESCACs and Tufts included, our transfer deadline application is the middle of March. And so you have to know in February, early March of your season that you're not coming back to that institution likely the following year. That doesn't really, it's not the easiest thing in the world to know that. So I think if you are feeling that winter break, January 1, like talk to your parents, talk to your coach, have honest conversations, make sure you are having a really good understanding of what you're looking for, what you have. Make sure, maybe you just don't understand what's going on at your school. And if you ask the right questions, you can feel really happy there. So make sure you're that in a good spot there. And then putting the application into a couple schools you're interested in, knowing that they might not have a lot of support of that, or in season might not take the time to scour the transfer portal to find guys as much. But if you can get that application in February or March in, that gives you the best chance to get in Tufts. We've had, I think, 5 transfers since I've been here at Tufts. None of them have been recruited by us. They've all come on their own. Some of them have been Division I players, some of them have been Division III starters. But they've been able to get on their own by applying and saying, hey, this is the right fit for me, first and foremost as a school, and then hoping lacrosse works out for them. I think a lot of them kind of went through this whole recruiting process, got on this roller coaster as 14, 15-year-olds, like, hey, I'm going to play college lacrosse. Never really considered maybe not playing. So I think making whatever that next step is going to be, making sure you'd be happy without lacrosse. And luckily, Tufts, checks a lot of boxes with being near a city, having great degrees, having a great program, great alumni network, great families. But I think, make sure that you feel really good about where you want to go, and then understanding what the transfer deadlines are for that school.
Awesome. Anything else on your end, Drew?
I think that's it. He covered the whole spectrum tonight. It's awesome.
This was definitely meaningful, and hopefully, like I said, that you're able to take a couple things from this and really adapt some stuff that you're doing, and maybe take a closer look at how you're outreaching to coaches, or kind of what your film looks like. So we appreciate it, Coach. Thank you for taking the time on a Monday night, and look forward to seeing Tufts continuing to play in May.
Yeah, I'll leave you one last thing. Just make sure you guys thanking your parents for all they do for you to do this. Every event we work, we always ask, hey, does anyone pay for this by themselves? Very rarely does someone say yes. It's usually their parents are taking a ton of time and money and energy to help you all through this. So when you're in the car ride going to events, like, get off your phone, talk to your parents in the car. Thank them for this. How lucky you are to have these opportunities. Obviously, this is an incredible group that you're working with. Make sure you thank the right people that are helping you. I'm very lucky to have great people behind me that support me out here. So make sure you take the time to thank your parents.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
And we will be following along, Coach. So go get it. I'm going to stop share. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you.
It's fun.
It was good. That was good. You crushed it, man.
Stop recording here.
I want to play for Tufts. Do I have any other